Hello, folks. This is your ticker guy coming at you on a beautiful day in Niceville, Florida. Look, we got to talk about this UN thing, and also about Donald Trump and apparently what appears to be a no BS impeachment announcement coming out Pelosi this afternoon. I would not be at all surprised. In fact, it's being reported on an unverified basis that Pelosi is going to announce a formal impeachment inquiry this afternoon. Essentially, the squad and a handful of other people have pressed her hard enough that she is now afraid that she's going to face a revolt in a caucus, possibly lose her speaker's gavel if she doesn't go along with it. To that, I say let them try it. I think this would be a astonishingly amusing and disruptive thing for the Democrats going into a presidential election. It's going to be an incredible, incredible thing. We impeached President Clinton for obstruction of justice and abuse of his office with regards to Monica Lewinsky and lying about it. And everyone says, oh, well, gee, we have such secrets in the executive. Well, look, the executive could not hide one cum-stained blue dress, okay? They failed to do that. By the way, if that dress had never shown up, I don't think you would have ever gotten a vote to impeach out of the House of Representatives. Of course, that went absolutely nowhere in the Senate, and this will go absolutely nowhere in the Senate, too. There is a zero chance that President Trump is removed from office in the Senate absent something far more serious than what has been disclosed or even whispered about in Washington so far. Secondly, I have a suspicion that President Trump is willing to take this gamble on the possibility that he can essentially knock Joe Biden out of the race on a permanent basis with it, and on that he's likely to win. Let's talk about this for just a moment here. What's going on right now is that Joe Biden has been caught on tape a couple of years ago stating himself that he extorted the firing of a prosecutor in exchange for $1 billion to the Ukraine. Now, the defenders of Biden will say, well, there were other global leaders who wanted that prosecutor out of there too. That doesn't matter, folks. That has absolutely nothing to do with it, with the reality of the matter, which is that Joe Biden has admitted to improper abuse of office to get rid of a prosecutor that, by the way, was tasked with investigating his son. I and incidentally, that's not where it ends either. Hunter apparently has managed to secure roughly $1 billion of investment capital from the Chinese for him to manage, despite having absolutely no relevant set of skills that would make him a qualified investment manager for $1 billion. Not to mention the $50,000 a month salary he was getting paid by a company in the Ukraine with no relevant experience to qualify him for that either. Down this rabbit hole you wish to go, Mr. Joe, you go right ahead. I think you're going to regret doing that. So this to me looks like a question of Joe and his pals and the squad stepping on a hornet's nest. They think the hornets are all going to come out and sting President Trump. I have a suspicion that the people who get stung are all on the other side of the aisle. We'll see. Maybe not, but like I said, I don't know what other evidence there is that's actually out there right now. But you're going to have to put it out in public. You're going to have to put it in a factual form that people can examine, and I just don't see it there, frankly. And when it happens, it's going to be interesting. All right, so the game's afoot. It's politics season, and there was a big dump in the market that coincided with this announcement that there's something coming out of the Democrats this afternoon. It's BS, folks. All right. Secondly, let's talk a little bit about this climate scare nonsense and Greta. All right, look. How dare you? By the way, for those of you that were paying attention, Greta was not the only one on that stage. I hope you do realize that. She happens to be the one that looks an awful lot like the girls that the Nazi youth used to run. Nobody wants to pay attention to that in the media, but they darn well should. To Greta and to the others on that stage and the other children that are running around saying that there's 30 years worth of settled science, Greta has, in fact, played on the fact that she has multiple, I won't call them retardations because it's not true. It's also not fair. Someone else has used that word. That's kind of a nasty word. However, she has said herself that she is mentally disabled. She has Asperger's, she has ADHD, and so she's on the autism spectrum. And this is something that she's actually made a thing of herself. So as a result, she considers it a superpower. Well, guess what? A lot of other people would consider it something else, but it doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is that this is a 16-year-old girl who probably has never had a single physics class. In fact, at the age of 16, folks, I had just taken my first high school chemistry class. All right. I'm quite sure she hasn't taken a thermodynamics class. She'd probably fail it if she tried because she just doesn't have the background. It is not that she's stupid. It has nothing to do with that. It just has to do with the fact that you have to have a very decent grounding of mathematics at a fairly high level for you to be able to deal with thermodynamics and high-level physics, or even for that matter, first semester college level physics is not something that you do without being able to pass the math classes first, because you will fail. All right. When Greta can talk to me about absorption spectra and things like this, then we can have a conversation about CO2 and climate change. But this really doesn't bear on the science of this. This bears on her extraordinarily privileged life. Folks, this is a girl who every single time, from the first time that she got out of diapers, the first time her mom took her into the bathroom and sat her on the potty with no diaper to put her business where adults put their business, big girls, big boys, and all of us, the first time she did that and got done doing her business, she put her pee in there, and then mom or her pulled the handle. Whoosh. Right? All gone. That water came into your house, Greta, because people produced carbon dioxide. There were sanitizing chemicals that were made using carbon dioxide producing processes that made the water that comes out of your tap safe to drink. When you were scared in the middle of the night and you got up and you flipped the light switch when you were 6, the lights came on because carbon was consumed, produced carbon dioxide. You claim to have had this wonderful sailboat trip across the Atlantic, but guess what? That boat was made out of fiberglass and carbon fiber, and all of the chemicals that saturated that carbon fiber and fiberglass were made out of petrochemicals. They're petroleum products, Greta. The mast was probably fiberglass on that boat, and guess what? That's a petroleum product. The crew flew back in a jet. Your parents flew in a jet using petroleum. If you go back on a ship or a plane or whatever, you will use petroleum. We don't do this because we're pigs. We do it because nobody has figured out how to put 100,000 BTUs in a 1-gallon size can that weighs somewhere between 6 and 8 pounds. No one else has figured out a way to do this, and there is absolutely no technological breakthrough that is coming in the near or immediate future that will change any of that. There are 1.3 billion human beings, Greta, who are in this world today that do not have those luxuries. They have to burn wood for heat. They do not have electric lights. They do not have clean water delivered to their homes because they don't have petrochemicals producing sanitizing agents and electricity running pumps to pump the water to their house, never mind lift pumps and treatment plants for the shit that comes out of their backsides. Instead, those individuals, many of them in India, many of them in sub-Saharan Africa, have to go outside to do their business. A number of them do that business literally on the side of the road. They face cholera. They face multiple other diseases and disabilities that you have never in your life, not even for one day, experienced. These people cannot get up in the middle of the night and flip a light switch when their children, who are 6 or 7 years old, hear something go bump because there is no light switch. There is no light switch because there is no wire. There is no wire because there is no electricity into their house. Their house is a hut. They would like to have electricity. They would like to have a light switch. Their 6 and 7 year and 8 and 9 and 10 and 15-year-old children would like to have the luxury of heat in the winter and air conditioning in the summer, all of which is powered by these terrible things that you think are so awful and are going to destroy the planet. These 1.3 billion human beings, Greta, in short, are not going to stop striving to improve their lives. And the racism apparent on that stage with you, Miss Lily White Girl, telling black and brown people in India and sub-Saharan Africa that they cannot have the lifestyle that you have had, even at a trivial level, even to the point of just being able to get up and flip a switch on the wall and have a light bulb come on, is not only offensive, it is outrageous. Even if humans are causing the climate to get hotter, which, by the way, I do not for a moment believe, but even if we are, your remedy is for those people to never enjoy that which you've never failed to have. You may talk to me and lecture me and everybody else in this country and across the world about climate change and about the horrors of it when you and your parents swap your place with a family of 3 in sub-Saharan Africa, all of them black, who currently live in a hut and take a crap on the side of the road, having to use a rope and a bucket to get their water out of a well because they have no electricity, who have to burn wood, which, by the way, is terribly polluting for heat and to cook because, again, they have no electricity. You wish to deny them those luxuries that you have enjoyed and the rest of us in America have enjoyed throughout our entire lives. You have only enjoyed these things for 16 years. I have enjoyed them for 56 years of my life. And yet I am not so much of a pig as to try to tell 1.3 billion other human beings, all of whom wish to strive to have the same things for their children that my parents wanted to have for me as I was growing up. I would never in a million years tell them they can't have it, and yet that is exactly what you tried to do on that stage. I understand that you don't get any of this. You do not understand. You can't possibly have understood because you're not old enough and you don't understand enough of the science, the mathematics, the physics, everything else. And being young, you're easily conned. That is unfortunately, one of the realities of being a young person is that you lack wisdom. Wisdom comes with age. When I was your age, I was talked into believing this thing called silent spring, that DDT and other pesticides, chloridane in particular, were going to kill us all. They were going to destroy everything that we had. It was going to be an awful thing. I didn't get out and protest. I didn't stand in front of Parliament, or in this case, in front of Congress, and lobby and demand the DDT be banned. Fortunately. A lot of other people did, though. They banned DDT. And what they ended up doing was killing more people than Hitler killed. In fact, about 1 million a year for a very long time. And if you want to know why they killed all those people, it was because DDT was being used in those very same brown and black parts of this world to knock down mosquitoes. Little tiny mosquito bites. Little tiny mosquito bites that carry malaria. Malaria, a terrible disease that we were on the verge of eradicating. We were working towards that. We had suppressed it to a great degree, and then we banned DDT throughout the world, and it came right back. And a whole bunch of little kids, especially little kids, got bit by mosquitoes, and they died. There never was the threat of a silent spring, Greta. It was a lie. It was later proved that the person who promoted that theory had falsified their data. It was not, in fact, the disaster that we were sold. But the people who were killed as a result of our political activism and the banning of that substance are still dead. You really want to go down that road? Well, you're doing it. You're in front of the UN. And I will tell you this, in another 5 or 10 years, if the climate minimum that I think is coming actually shows up, temperatures start to go down, people start to die from famine, and you and your pals will sit there and say, but global warming. What are you going to tell all of those dead children in Sub-Saharan Africa and other parts of the developing world and not yet developed world that do not have the benefit of mechanized, highly carbon-consuming and producing, automated, and assisted agriculture? Yes, you and your family will not be killed when the climate cools, but an awful lot of other people probably will. And instead of focusing on sustainability and how we get those people into a first world standard of living, you instead want to consign them to continue to live in their huts and crap on the side of the road. You do not realize that you're being abused and exploited by adults who are Marxists. This is not a new scheme or scam. It was run by the Nazis in Germany under Hitler Youth. But you really ought to step back and think about it, Greta. You won't, but you should. Because the day when you're going to have to deal with it, you're going to be 21, 22, 25, 26, when the inexorable worm turns and the reality of climate change actually dawns upon you, that it isn't getting hotter anymore. You're going to be old enough to understand what you did, and you're going to have to face it. I'm your ticker guy, and that's my view.